a banana peel and he would be like, this is great. This is 4D chess. This is brilliant. This is how we win, folks.
Whether you agree with what QAnon does and says or not, they're great patriots. Everybody I met at QAnon is a great patriot. And here's what I said on Twitter today. I said one or two things are true with the whole QAnon thing. If it is just something that's interesting to talk about, if it's just patriots getting together and postulating about what the deep state might be doing and what Donald Trump might be doing about it, and it just ends up being just a fun thing that keeps everybody motivated and encouraged, that's fine. That's okay. But there's a possibility, okay, and it's harmless. There's a possibility that it could all be true and that it could all be foretelling the destruction of the deep state and what the Trump plan is for the deep state. Trust the plan. Maybe it's all true. So one way or the other, either it's a harmless, fun thing or it's true and it's going to mean the destruction of the deep state. To me, I like those odds. I see no downside in it. And
forgetting his name at the moment, you probably know what I'm talking about. And there were probably a collection of people like this.
This is a big Twitter account or something like that?
Yeah, he got banned for spreading QAnon at one point, which is like not at all surprising. Just a continuation of his Trump
they all
sycophancy.
They all kind of blend together, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't remember his name at the moment. You probably know who I'm talking about. But again, what kind of capital was behind that guy? Nothing. Effectively. He was just tweeting. He lost his job, or I don't know what happened. He just tweeted all day. I mean, if you are somewhat snappy and if you kind of go with the herd, you kind of realize you have some sixth sense where you can kind of tell where things are going, and you're always like rooting them on, and you tweet 100 times a day, you're going to get 1 million followers at some point, and you actually are going to have tremendous amount of influence, which both of those individuals did.
Yeah, and a key to that is you have to be bringing sort of glad tidings, right? So in other words, it has to be an optimistic message. I mean, this is really the kind of the root of
or a radically pessimistic. Libs of TikTok is another. That's kind of like you live in hell is what she is telling Haim or whatever her name is telling you every day. But go on.
Yeah. No, so I guess you're right. So maybe my thesis is totally incorrect, but I do think that there is at least a type of social media personality that gains currency by basically by coattailing and cheerleading, movements like the MAGA movement, and by basically bringing glad tidings, like we're winning, right? So
yes.
It's always something people like to hear that, of course, right? Now, there may also be a black pill equivalent to that. I would venture to guess that the stronger current or tendency is to basically white pill, and to get beyond whatever and get behind whatever, in our sphere at least, get behind any conservative movement that appears to be gaining momentum or having success, right?
Yes.
So it's that also becomes, for some, of course, it also becomes a way of grifting. It is kind of, it's a way of like sort of amplifying things that are not necessarily useful movements or directions, and kind of wildly amplifying them, because you get a lot of like accounts or social media accounts basically doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And they'll do it no matter how, sort of black pilling events are, right? So in other words, they're never, it doesn't seem like they were ever sobered by the reality of the situation. For example, Trump getting elected and kind of failing to live up to his obligations towards his constituency.
Yeah.
So
there does also seem to be, sorry to cut you off. First off, his name is Bill Mitchell. It actually came to me. Good old Bill Mitchell,
sure.
Gray-haired boomer. I don't know where he is now, probably Gab. But there also seems to be a right-wing quality to this. And that's not to say that there aren't like left-wing equivalents. I remember reading about Brooklyn Dad or one of these guys who was a fairly popular left-wing account, and he was getting paid, not big bucks, but 5,000 here, 10,000 there, pretty good money, I guess, for tweeting and for tweeting on behalf of Joe Biden. And the reason why he was getting paid is because he had more traction as this authentic Twitter account. Like, I'm just a guy, I'm a Brooklyn dad. And between, PTA meetings and fixing dinner, I'm going to tweet about how Joe Biden's great and Trump is a fascist or something like that. And, that was probably money well spent, actually, from this campaign. So there are left-wing equivalents, but I think there is this kind of right-wing quality to it that this flourishes on the right. And I think it says something about the position that the right understands itself in. Like, you go to Bill Mitchell to get your 40 chess copium because the New York Times won't do it for you. The New York Times has a liberal slant, of course, but deals in facts and balancing their statements and so on. And so there's this almost kind of like Gnostic quality, and I mean that in a loose sense, of course, of don't believe the lying media. They're all evil and ridiculous. But like Bill Mitchell, like, he'll tell you the real truth that Jesus is coming back tomorrow morning or something like that. And I don't know. I mean, again, not that there aren't left-wing equivalents, but this does seem to be a particular right-wing thing. And I guess there's a certain irony to that, in the sense that when people were first singing the praises of the internet, 25 years ago, I don't think they imagined this would be, the most prominent force on it would be 4chan and QAnon or something like that. But, here it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, and now, so I guess we have this situation where Musk is now in control of Twitter, and he is going to set a new direction, ostensibly. He's recently met with ADL heads, which, much to the sort of horror of the dissident right community. And, on some level, you get a sense that it may be more of the same. It may just end up being more of the same. Which I think that you and I had sort of girded ourselves for that possibility. Like, I don't think that either you or I were had any delusions about this, and I'm sure that's the case with many people, the dissident right, especially that people who have been in the dissident right, since 2016 or 2015. But to me, though, it's interesting to I wonder what he's going to do different, because I actually think that he'll probably try to, I do think his interests were genuine. Now they ultimately, I don't know that rather his interest in free speech was a genuine interest, because otherwise, I mean, on some level, it is kind of a turd of a company, right? It's a very kind of overpriced company that he's bought.
Yes.
That is not, it's not a profitable company currently. So I think that he is actually doing this as a kind of activist, that he is interested in issues surrounding free speech. And so that's genuine. I mean, it's also a kind of a passion project, in the sense that I think he really loves Twitter. He loves being on Twitter. He loves interacting with people on Twitter. So he loves the community of Twitter. And it allows him to be a kind of media tycoon, because now he's, it's social media, which has risen as one of these major forms of media. So I think that there are things that he, it is a labor of love. And I think that his interest in free speech, or issues surrounding free speech, are genuine. And who knows, because he's not going to hear our voice. Or who knows, maybe some of these ideas will kind of trickle up to him, or maybe hopefully he's already got some ideas.
Maybe he's a listener. Who knows?
Well, that would be fantastic. But because I think that there are directions that he could, if I were Elon Musk, I think that one thing that I would consider doing is sort of like rigorously banning racial epithets, right? just getting rid of racial epithets, right? Now I know that so I'm not going to be like, so this is not a position that, like, if you disagree with me on this position, I'm going to unfollow you or block you or something like that. I think I understand the argument that well, because the counter argument would be kind of more of a libertarian argument, and it would be like, well, that's a slippery slope, and if you ban racial epithets, which are protected free speech, and obviously they should remain protected free speech. But I'm talking specifically about the house rules on Twitter, on the platform, right? Now, I mean, there are a couple of factors here. One is execution and enforcement of, what are speech codes effectively, because one way or another, there's going to be speech codes on Twitter. I mean, that's just something that's obviously that's something that he's indicated that he's interested in doing. He doesn't want it to be a free for all. He doesn't want it,
hellscape was the word he used. Yeah,
it's the word he used to describe. Yeah. And I don't think either of us want it to be a hellscape either. But if I were him and there were a good system, because I mean, again, part of it is the policy, and then the other part of it is the kind of execution of the policy. And I guess a third part of it would be the people executing the policy, right? So there's many kind of like pieces to this mechanism that he would have to sort of wield to make Twitter a kind of more desirable cultural and political space. But if I were him, that is something that I would consider. Now, I understand the arguments against it. It's a slippery slope. But again, the counter argument is we're only talking about Twitter here. We're not talking about free speech generally. But other people might say, well, but free Twitter is influential, so it could set.
Well, yeah, but think about it. But before you go on, you have more to say. I mean, think about it.
I must be arguing with myself, but
yeah. Well, think about it this way. I mean, yes, the N-word is protected speech in the sense that, yeah, I think everyone would be outraged if you were arrested for that or even fined. Although there are some examples of that in Great Britain and so on. But this is America. But the fact is, if you think of Twitter as a town hall, it is a zone for discussion and free speech. Jack Dorsey even used like a global consciousness or something, little airy fairy, but whatever. Yeah. You can't go out onto so in that sense, it's replacing public spaces that we had previously. Maybe some more private, like the local coffee shop or bar. Maybe some of them were public, like the sidewalk, particularly the sidewalk outside of a public building where protests would occur. You can't go out onto a sidewalk and run up into someone's face and start yelling racial epithets at them. That's not protected speech. That you're going to be arrested for that, rightfully. And yeah, it's a little bit different if you're not just directly harassing someone. You can get rough in your protest. And I support that. Actually, I think people should have the ability to, be a bit edgy or vulgar or combative or something in their rhetoric when they're protesting something. Sure, but you can't harass people, and you're gonna get thrown out of whatever coffee shop or bar there is if you're just dropping N-bombs constantly. I mean, like. I think what the thing is of these people, I mean, first off, my criticism would be there's nothing much to them outside of the N-bomb. But secondly, they almost believe that they have like infinite rights on the internet, that the internet is somehow special. And if you're gonna understand these platforms as a public space to at least some degree, and I think they should be, you have more right to say protest in some way in a shopping mall than you do at someone's house. If you walk into their house, you can't say, well, this is a protest or whatever. No, you're going to be arrested. Now, could you hold up a sign and like protest a company that's, you know, I don't know, killing the whales or whatever. Yeah,